Good evening, this is the Countercurrent Show. Tonight's show is going to be about Maxime Bernier's Twitter thread, as well as the media and other politicians' general reactions to what he said. Yesterday, Maxime Bernier posted a 6-part Twitter thread, whereupon he lambasted Justin Trudeau for constantly playing up extremist multiculturalism. This prompted a backlash from many news outlets across Canada trying to tie his words to racism. Indeed, Liberal and NDP politicians chose this opportunity to fly their "diversity is our strength" flags, with no thought whatsoever to the argument that Bernier put forth. Maxime Bernier's tweets on diversity had zero to do with race and had everything to do with the anti-Western conquest ideology known as radical Islamism. Under immense pressure from the multiculturalist cult, MPs from all stripes capitulated, calling on Andrew Scheer to fire Bernier. Bob Rae, the failed former Ontario NDP premier who plunged the province into fiscal demise, claimed that Maxime Bernier was using the same rationale that the racists of old used to exclude ethnic minorities, was among others who decided to accuse Bernier of dog whistling, an idiotic phrase which implies that Bernier is trying to signal to racists without blatantly doing so. Apparently closing off your borders to terrorists and radical Islamists is bad because the Japanese were held in internment once. Like the two scenarios were like in any way. The precarious effort to equate Bernier's comments with the racists of old is dubious at best and malicious at worst. It is not the duty of Canada to accommodate foreign interests that hurt its pocketbook. Liberals and NDPers alike will drone incessantly about our international obligations, as the foreign countries deserve more of our money than do our own citizens. We do not have to accept refugees if we do not want to, even if there is a humanitarian crisis. Countries like Japan, or even other Islamic countries, choose not to accept refugees on the basis of keeping their culture intact, and in some cases their religion unchallenged. Funny how those countries don't get challenged, but Canada does. On the world stage. What the Canadian left fails to understand is that we are living in a global world. This is no longer the isolationist nation that it once was. Therefore, it follows logically that when we put superfluous sweet nothings over positioning our nation to grasp the benefits of a global economy, we get neither the benefits of being generous to the world nor the fruits of world trade. Diversity is our strength, is a Marxist dog whistle for an ever-expanding welfare state. Letting in refugees expands our list of dependents, thereby stripping the country of much-needed wealth when it needs to pay off its massive debt and eventually unfunded liabilities. The Liberals have taken a firm position against encouraging Canadian citizens to reproduce and build families by instead taking the approach of importing foreign nationals that are dependent on the welfare system. They claim that it is an investment in our future, disregarding that those who hold diametrically opposing views to our country's values are by definition undesirables. Try as we might, letting in more immigrants without regard to what skills our country is in dire need of leaves us with massive sunk costs. As pointed out by Maxime Bernier, Iqra Khalid, the chief architect of M103, the motion which acts as a prelude to censorship, tweeted her endorsement of naming a Winnipeg park after the founder of Pakistan. Perhaps in Pakistan this would have been more appropriate, but here in Canada, where a citizen's fealty is to her flag and no other before it, all this does is ferment national segmentation, like the type Maxime Bernier spoke about in his tweets. Moreover, with the horrid state that Pakistan is at the moment, harboring genocidal terrorists like it once did with Osama bin Laden, folks may be forgiven for thinking that Iqra Khalid's support of Pakistan tied her to Islamic extremism, given her background in censorship against religious skeptics. A shame that nothing had been said by her regarding the John A. Macdonald statue being removed from Victoria City Hall in BC. Maybe recognizing the founder of Canadian Confederation is not as important in her eyes as the founder of Pakistan. Just like the rest of the Liberal Party, she seems to believe that any country in the world is more worthy of the time, attention, and economic investment than Canada. Why are Canadians no longer proud of our country? To reduce it to a post-national state, as Trudeau put it, is to put us out of the running for being the best country on earth. The leftist argument for Canadian pride appears to rest in our universal healthcare system, and our country being the embodiment of every other nation on earth. What utter tripe! Canada was a collection of European colonies that collectively swore allegiance to the British Crown. Where the Americans chose their creed of liberty, Canadians chose the harshest environment upon which to stake a living while remaining loyal to their Commonwealth. This is not to deny the multinational state it was in the past, but to note the dominant power that once ruled Canada from afar. Anybody could come to this great nation if they could endure immense hardship. The humbleness that emerged as the Canadian spirit was born of tight-knit communities that had similar Judeo-Christian values and similar allegiances. See the unique histories of Upper Canada and Lower Canada as an indication of how those allegiances may have differed. If you worked hard, you belonged. Hard work had a different meaning in Canada, as it was known by all to only take the strongest and most industrious of the world as commanded by the environment. The problem we face today is that our lives have become so comfortable as a result of innovation and technology that we have thrown our historical values away in exchange for emotional expediency. No longer do we question why economic migrants and refugees would arrive at our border unannounced, and why our government simply lets them in on the basis of this country being a supermassive charity. Canada deserves the best. That is what it means to put Canada first and the rest of the world last. If we are indeed the best nation on earth, it would attract only the very best people of this earth. It was not to race that we attributed Canadian identity to, but to the perseverance against the worst odds under God that defined this great nation. Leftists wish to take away industriousness and replace it with government dependence, whereby government is responsible for advancing societal ethics and making the so-called wise investments our country dearly needs in industry. To support the leftist revisionism that has gripped our country is to destroy the remnants of the Canadian spirit, in which all that would be left is our opposition to our mean big brother, America. Maxime Bernier's series of tweets hits home because it acknowledges the reality that cultures originating from radical Islamic nations are incompatible with the Western ideological blend of classical conservatism and classical liberalism, instead opting for more theocratic socialist models of government and this totalitarian culture that accompanies them. The economic collectivists in academia and the so-called grassroots Canadian media have time and time again expressed their open disdain for opposition to the welfare state and for the individualistic bent offered by free market capitalism. Capitalism is a core component of what comprises a Canadian, as economic central planning in the past has led to nothing but regional divides, west versus east, that have torn us apart when we should have united to solve looming issues together. Property rights, while not explicitly enshrined in the Canadian Constitution, are some of the strongest in the world. What Maxime Bernier warns us about is the abdication of the very freedom that made Canadians the strongest people in the world. In the face of our southern neighbors' revitalization of their national identity, our leaders fall short of promoting Canada as a world leader in commerce and military affairs. As Canadians are known to be the most loyal and enduring of the world's people, the surrender of our values in an effort to capitulate to welfare statists weaken our glorious reputation. If we are not careful, the sole component to our nation's identity in the next few years or decades will become our opposition to American values, and if and when that happens, that is when the world will declare Canada dead.